uphold you with my righteous hand. We love a good Bible verse. And that's the end of the episode. So before we get into our weekly segments and panels, there's a couple of cutscenes I want to talk about.
Okay.
They basically cut, I don't know, it's not really a subplot, but there's a cutscene where Dean's following Sam down the hall and he sees a hot blonde girl taking off her top to be examined by a doctor, and he's like, it would be wrong to go in there. And then this bloody dying man grabs Dean's arm and is like, don't let me die. Probably because Jensen looks like a freaking angel. And then the man vanishes. And then there's another scene with that same bloody man calling out, disappearing off the bed when Dean gets there. And then that's right after that is when he hears Tessa calling out for the first time. He sees this other guy appearing and disappearing a couple of times, and then he hears Tessa. Ooh, so it's another cool ghost, I guess, a ghost to parallel with the fact that Dean might become that. But I just thought it was interesting, and it just didn't make the end of the episode, probably for time.
Yeah, that would have been cool though.
Yeah,
it would have. Yeah, it adds a little something, kind of broadens the universe a little bit.
But that brings us to our weekly segments and panels for the first time this season.
Woohoo! So exciting.
Total death counts. This week we saw 3 deaths, bringing our on-screen total to 150.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
This show is so morbid. That's crazy.
Wait till you get to the on and off-screen total. That was also the only 3 deaths, I believe, and that makes the on and off-screen total 927 plus some unknowns.
Just let you come to terms with that.
Yeah. So we also try to assign a most valuable person, an MVP of the week. So let's see who people would like to nominate as this week's most valuable person. We'll start with Meredith.
I'm nominating Azazel.
Okay, yeah, Azazel did come in clutch.
Well, because first of all, his performance was absolutely amazing.
Yes,
he killed John and let Dean survive to fight another day.
That
so
was
I'm nominating him.
You told me that your MVP was going to be good, and I do appreciate that.
That is good.
It's not very often Azazel.
I feel like my answer is less good.
Go for it.
Because I was going to say Dean.
Dean's good.
Just because he's such a vital part of this episode. He plays into both of the storylines that are going on and having his own storyline, but also playing into Sam's storyline and John's storyline to an extent. So that was my answer.
Well, he's kind of, I think it's interesting what you pointed out, because he's occupying this space between life and death for most of the episode, and he's also bridging these storylines.
Because we'll follow Dean out of a conversation with John and Sam into a conversation with Tessa, and it's such a seamless transition from real world to ghost world, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I gave it to Sam. I kind of wanted to give it to John, but I would never give it to John.
Fuck John Winchester. Yeah. We do not do that in this house. I know this is your podcast, but we don't do this in this podcast.
Literally. Dean knew that John wasn't John because he was too nice. You'll know I'm not me when I give John Winchester MVP. That'll be your hint that I've been possessed by a demon.
That would be an interesting demon.
Next, let's put this episode to the Bechdel test. Did we have 2 named women in this episode? No, because we just had Tessa. Who
it was
might
just
technically
Tessa.
Not even be a woman. Reapers.
Yeah.
Well, maybe she identifies as a woman.
She does seem to identify that way, but we don't know that for sure.
We'll just let her have her pronouns.
Yeah.
But also she's even, I feel qualifies even less for the Bechdel test, because for something like this, they needed it to be a woman because Dean wouldn't listen they couldn't let a man be the one comforting Dean and those kinds of things. I don't know. Homophobia.
This week's Case of the Week was a Reaper. I don't know if either of you have anything you wanted to say about Reapers that we haven't said before on this podcast. Meredith has some stuff. Okay, Meredith, take it away.
Okay. I always have stuff. Come on.
Do. It's excellent. It's what we love about you.
Thank you. Let me get to the beginning of my notes. There we go. Okay. On Supernatural, a Reaper is a being that reaps the souls of the living when it's their time to die and then guides them to the afterlife. And we previously met a Reaper in season 1, but this episode is the first time we see a Reaper operating as they're meant to. So here, we learn that Reapers are psychopomps. As humans, we're kind of obsessed with death. It's one of those things that happens to everyone, and it's really mysterious and can be kind of terrifying.
Yeah, sounds right.
So there are several ways to address death in religion and mythology. Most cultures have one or more gods of death, rulers of the afterlife, and psychopomps. A psychopomp is a being that guides souls from the land of the living to the land of the dead. Traditionally, they're not in charge of deciding anyone's fate, and they have no hand in how people die or which part of the afterlife they go to afterwards. They're simply guides.
That's mostly true for Supernatural.
Yeah. It's like a doorway almost in Supernatural, so in that way, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So some familiar psychopomps would be the god Hermes in Greek mythology, who is responsible for guiding the dead to the underworld.
I did not remember that.
It was a trek that took 9 days and 9 nights. And,
that's so far. Can I just stay alive?
No, sweetie.
Can I stay alive so I don't have to do cardio?
9 days and 9 nights of cardio is so much cardio. I don't care if I'm dead.
Once they got to the underworld, they'd be ferried across the river Styx by Charon, and this belief led to some very interesting funerary customs where people were buried with a coin under their tongue with which to pay Charon for the ride across the river.
Right.
And then some other psychopomps include the Valkyries in Norse mythology, a race of female warrior goddesses with wings, the Japanese Shinigami, and the Irish Dullahan, which was a really cool headless horseman that carried its head beneath its arm and used a spinal cord as a whip.
That's really gross.
I want one. No, it's awesome.
Did you say I want one?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Don't you?
Yeah.
In Western culture, the most famous psychopomp is the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper has a few variations, but he's usually a skeleton wearing a black cloak and carrying a giant scythe. He's also usually characterized as male, so I'm going to refer to him with male pronouns.
I always just, whenever I hear of, like, the Grim Reaper, I think of, like, The Sims. Do you guys play The Sims?
Yes.
Where it's like whenever a Sim dies, like, the Grim Reaper shows up.
Yep.
And that's exactly what I picture when I think of the Grim Reaper.
Same.
Love it. The Grim Reaper, as we know him, came out of the Black Death in the 14th century. During that time, Asia, Europe, and parts of Africa were suffering from the horrors of the bubonic plague, which eventually claimed a third or so of Europe's population at the time.
Just a lot of people.
For several years, and then for several periods afterwards, everyone was surrounded by death and the fear of death, so you can imagine, especially in our current social
I was
climate.
gonna say, that's really hitting close to home. I had to
So
curb my mind.
relevant.
Yeah. You can imagine the kind of impact that would have on a culture. Death became a popular motif in artwork, usually represented as a skeleton or a pale, emaciated figure. The Grim Reaper is especially interesting because all the other death entities at the time were gods, so they were affiliated with specific religions and pantheons. The Grim Reaper, however, is almost agnostic. He came out of a Christian culture, but he's not part of Christian theology. He began as a motif in artwork to represent death as a concept, so he was an image first and a character second. I think this is going into like personal opinion as a history nerd. I think this is really cool because when you consider the social climate during the 14th century, the Black Death happened at a time when religion was everything. The Catholic Church held an insane amount of power in Western Europe, and everyone took God's power over life and death for granted. So when an earth-shattering plague broke out and then continued in spite of the church's efforts to stop it, many people lost their faith in the church as an institution. So the Grim Reaper comes out of this Christian culture, but he's not representative of God or the devil. He personifies death as a concept on its own, which really fits a society that believed the church had failed them. And the personification of death is a very powerful tool in storytelling. Personifying death leads to humanizing death. As we see with Tessa, death is no longer this faceless, inevitable result. It's now a person, and people can be reasoned with, resisted, eluded, captured, and even killed.
Yeah.
One thing I really loved about Tessa is that she's not evil. Like,
Yeah, she's kind of like...
She's just doing her job.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like, I don't really think it makes sense to make death gods or reapers into villains because death isn't an evil thing. We're just afraid of it.
I think that is one thing that Supernatural has kind of somewhat managed. Like, death just kind of like does not care.
We're afraid of death because it takes people away from us and we don't know for sure what happens to them afterwards. And that's what we see with Dean in this episode. Like, he doesn't want to die yet.
I think Tessa was literally like Dean's like, if I'm dead, then other people are gonna die. And she's like, yeah, every single soldier in the history of everything has said that. And you know what? The fight went on just fine without them. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have this reminder that Dean's the main character, but in the eyes of death, he's not that special.
yeah.
Yeah.
For
She's
now.
not malicious. She's just doing her job and keeping the universe in order.
Yeah.
Death personified is very popular in pop culture, so I have a couple recommendations if you're into that.
Yeah, we love recommendations.
If you like Reapers and vaguely Christian stuff, then you should read I'm the Grim Reaper by Grave Weaver on Webtoon. It's a comic about a young woman who's sent to hell and is made a Reaper by Satan, and it's very cool, and the artwork is pretty. And there's also the novel The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak, and it's a story set in Nazi Germany that's narrated by Death, and Death is just a tired primordial entity that wants a vacation and can't have one, and it's great. The last one is Death Note, which is a manga and an anime by Tsugumi Oba and Takeshi Obata, and it's about the Japanese death gods, Shinigami.
Interesting.
Here they have notebooks where they write down someone's name and how they'll die, and the series revolves around what happens when a teenager with a god complex gets a hold of a Shinigami's notebook.
I
It's
feel
a
like
trip.
that happens at some point in Supernatural.
I watched the anime. The anime is amazing. Don't watch the movie, ever.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I will unwatch it with my eyes.
Thank you. In conclusion, death personifications are cool, and personifying death is how the human race avoids an existential crisis.
Excellent work.
Thank you.
An excellent start to the new season. That brings us to highlight and lowlight. Favorite and least favorite part of the episode. Emmie, do you want to start?
Sure, because I have a very specific favorite. Okay, so for favorites, it's either Sam pulling out the Ouija board or that scene between Sam and Bobby at Baby.
Yeah.
For sure. For least favorite, it's when John.
John, yeah.
Can I just say John, period, end of?
Yeah.
Can I just say that? Okay, cool, for sure.
That's definitely been ours before.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah, go ahead. That's the move.
Excellent. Meredith, how about you?
Highlight, I like Azazel's scenes because Frederick Lane is just so great. Lowlight, John, but specifically John yelling at Sam because yikes.
Oh, yeah.
My lowlight was that we didn't find out for sure, like, exactly what Dean was gonna say, like, to Tessa.
Yeah.
I would have just liked to know. I think it's better narratively that we don't know, but I would have liked to know.
Yeah.
Based on later
Selfishly.
events. Yeah. And my highlight, guess what my highlight is?
John
my highlight
dying.
is 100% John dying. Yeah, fuck John Winchester.
Oh my god, I can't believe I didn't think of that.
Fuck that guy.
Can I add that to my list of highlights?
Yes, you can.
Yes. Okay, excellent.
That's allowed.
Our next segment is Call CPS, which is times when an adult should have been calling CPS, usually on John.
There's so many.
This one I feel really bad about because it is kind of directed at people that I love. But, like, John told us this stupid anecdote about how, like, Dean was, like, just, like, emotionally,
Yeah.
like, caring for him. And, like, all the people that John was leaving the kids with really should have fucking taken the kids. Like,
yeah.
John should not have had them. Bobby, Ellen, Pastor Jim, all the rest of you, I'm looking at you. You're all responsible. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We love you.
Yeah.
We're acknowledging your flaws.
That's why I like Jody more than I like Ellen, okay?
Yeah.
Bye. I said what I said. You can quote me on it.
So our next one, unless you guys have things to add to that, I feel like
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Really?
It's the mental health check. I'm not a psychologist, so this segment is based purely on my own opinions and a weekly reminder that if you're struggling with anything at all, reach out for help. This week a lot of shit happened.
Where to start?
It was so refreshing to me to watch an episode where Dean's life was in, like, imminent danger throughout, and Dean didn't for 1 second think about doing anything less than every possible thing to keep himself alive. But he wanted to live, and he was fighting for it, and what a relief.
Really proud of you, Dean.
Once you get past, like, season, like, 3 or 4,
Yeah.
Dean's will to live is, like, much harder to come by. And it gets exhausting
Like-
sometimes.
Poor Dean. Honestly, though, I get it. His life is so hard, I can't.
Yeah, his life is exhausting.
Sam also semi-reasonably held it together, but I think only because Dean was still technically alive. Like, I think
Yeah.
if Dean was, like, dead, Sam would have lost his shit. I think the only reason that Sam didn't make a demon deal in this episode was they didn't have Jeffrey Dean Morgan for series regular in season 2, so they had to kill him off. And, also that he was just, like, he didn't think of it. Like, I think eventually Sam would have made that realization that was something he could do, and he would have did it. Like, no questions asked.
Yeah.
I feel like we talked enough about John, but he's had a death wish since day one, and he cashed in on it.
Yep.
In real life, I take suicide a lot more seriously, but this is John Winchester, so fuck him.
Oof.
T! Oh my god.
Like,
I
in real
love
life,
this
I'd
song.
be much more concerned, but this is John Winchester, so he can
It's
just
John
go
Winchester.
to hell. Literally go to hell.
It's fine.
Well, don't
It's
worry.
fine. Literally go to hell. It's fine.
Soul transactions. Finally, we have a full-on demon deal. I've been waiting a full season for this.
Oh my gosh, finally this segment has a purpose.
Yes. Winchester souls don't get counted the same way that, like, other souls do. Like, average people. They hold a different value most of the time. Sometimes less, sometimes more. Kind of like comparing, like, the US dollar to the Canadian dollar. It depends on the circumstances, how much they're worth in relation to each other. But John sold his soul plus the cult for 1 day alive plus Dean's life. That was the deal.
But he didn't even get a day.
Yeah, he got, like, I don't know, he was gone overnight. Like, overnight was when he was missing. So I feel like he got, like, a couple hours.
Okay. Logistics.
We have a brand new segment that we're doing for the first time that we announced in our season 1 recap.
Yay, I forgot what it was.
Sam's traumatic brain injury. Because Sam's
right.
always unconscious.
He literally is. And you have a tally.
Yes.
He was unconscious at one point in the beginning of the episode.
Yes. I think he was at least unconscious once in the beginning of this episode. He was alert for the rest of the episode, which is good, but he did not have a fight scene in this episode, so that was part of the reason.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
So we got midway through through recording when Emmie had this idea.
You should do like a count of how many times we've said fuck John Winchester or said something
God.
bad about John Winchester or how much we hate him. I feel like that would take editing you forever though, so I'm not going to tell you to do it, but that would be really funny.
And I am editing KJ, so I said, that's a great idea, Emmie. And even though it was a lot of work, and I might have missed a couple, we said, fuck John Winchester 13 times in this episode, which felt like a very fitting number, but a little on the low side, I'm not gonna lie.